what that's about, right? So we've got these wild, empty edge spaces, right? And you felt that down the beach, you're feeling that, right? If you're surrounded by other people's ideas, there's not very much room for your own to fill up the space. This is what you get with being the city. I guess your mind's too crowded to think of anything beyond that. I could go outside and actually see stars, not just the Milky Way and all the constellations and all of that. You can see the dark gas clouds in between them, which you can't see anywhere else. Well, let's put it this way. Jesus went to the desert. Buddha went to the mountains. Holy things come from empty places. There's no divinity in crowds, yeah? That's what you take shit back to them. I don't know if you get it with what you do, because your work is essentially, you have to grab things as they happen, right? As a filmmaker, you grab things that are real as they happen.
Yes.
Right? And your work is compositional. You add a greater reality by the way that you compose images from reality. So you're creating a hyper-reality.
Yes.
Instead of just presenting things exactly as they are. Even as a documentary, see, the conceit of the documentary is that in fact the documentary is a hypocrisy. You're not giving people exactly what happens. You're giving people a hyper-reality, a version which is more real than reality, so that it's condensed. There are archetypes that we have been given by filmmakers that allow people to understand things that are going on in the world through a work of fiction, right?
Yes.
Which is more powerful than the reality. What we are supposed to do is act as the facilitators of the extelligence. This species of ours is far from perfect, but we're more than the sum of its parts, and we're no longer individuals. Once upon a time, we were not just individuals, and you've lived with tribal peoples. I mean, I haven't lived with tribal peoples, but you have. And you've noticed, right, correct me if I'm wrong, but from anthropological studies that I've read, as this may be true in your experience, these people have less ego boundaries than Westerners. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because just in the way as there is the sex drive, the urge to procreate,
yes,
which is invigorating and innovating and entertaining and infinitely varied and stimulating for moral argument, right? Just as there's that same thing which perpetuates our bodies and the genetics and the DNA which slowly changes what we are as an organism. You could see from the perspective of being outside of time, the human race as a single entity. Well, you said earlier, humanity is a cancer on the body of the planet, and we are killing it for the sake of comfort and convenience. Our personal healing crisis is nothing more than a reflection of what is going on in the world. So our species is changing to adapt to things, but like genetically that's very slow. The thing is, there is and has arisen within us, and we don't know how it started, but it's probably a good thing that it did. A secondary drive which is equally important, and that is the drive to procreate our intellect. And this is something which is amazingly promiscuous. It doesn't just create one child. It can potentially mean that intellectually downstream from you are millions of people. For example, right? Would we be so worried about government surveillance if Brave New World hadn't been written, if 1984 had not been written, right? If the movie Brazil had not been made? Would we not see reflections of that kind of thing? You know? Now, these are people who set out to produce art, but have influenced so many people that they've literally changed how we think as an entire species. Do you not feel that this urge to create art is as visceral as the urge to create children? Is it more so? There are people who would believe that it is more so. There are people who have foregone their procreative abilities in order to be artists. have a connection with, and the next morning I wake up in their house and what have I done? And I've got a hangover and like, oh man, I got on another Tinder date with some woman that I thought was attractive, and I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm not certain I should have done that. But there's people who do that. Why do they do that? Because they have a separate entity that lives in their trousers that tells them to do it. And as artists, we are dickheads because our head is a procreative device which tells us that we must inseminate the world with our ideas. That's how it is. It's the truest sense of being a dickhead. And because you have a hard-on for your artistic experience, you are having the time of your life when you're doing it. Because, like, you're spending your time creating life. You know?
No one's gonna buy this anymore. Fuck it.
It's true, though. It's absolutely true.
But what avenue do we go to, man? Hollywood is not gonna have us. There's no fucking way.
Yeah, but I mean, fuck those guys. Really, they're doing a job. And I think it's the same as you used to always be a great one for going to the little independent rock band shows. You'd go and see some fucking weird energy happening. You'd go and see someone jerking off their mind all over the audience. You know? Because there's more to that than listening to a manufactured band who've been put together by some dipshit in England because they're good-looking boys and they're told to sing a song about how much they love some imaginary woman who's going to be in their video, despite the fact that half of them are actually gay, and they get dressed in certain clothes to sell certain things and rent a car. Or like these hip-hop dudes who are not even, like, they don't write their own lyrics. Toki Combs is real. Suda's real. One of these guys I know, they're real. They actually write some crazy shit.
Growing up like vaginal sores, never mind applause, cause I'll be on your back just like spinal cords.
This shit is fucking crazy, and this dude, what's famous? Some jerk off standing with his fucking pants around his knees in front of a Lamborghini he's rented, singing about how he's got many gold chains. Oh, look at all my gold chains, I got lots of those. Fucking boring. They slur and mumble all the words, so you can't hear what they're saying. There's a big beat, and the essence of the video is, I've got lots of money, look at all my mates and shit, getting drunk. Pop music hasn't got better either. That's still exactly the same shit. Lots of well-scrubbed, presentable 20-year-olds pretending to be teenagers singing about romance that they don't feel because they were told to by a record company executive. It's exactly the same as it's always been. There's manufactured shit. There's the Hollywood shit, which is an industry where they go, here's the idea, let's see what kind of money we can make from this idea with product placement and making it as generic as possible. The greatest number of people should find this funny. In the old days, priests would come up with gods and change their societies. God of chaos and his sun, and they cut off his balls. They became the sun and the moon. You know? The purpose of these stories was in fact allegorical, because hidden in them is a codex for how you're supposed to live as a human being. So this priesthood came up with stories which would change how people thought. And some of them are so powerful that thousands of years after we actually know how shit works, people still go to church. So although like we kind of figured out how the universe was created, tomorrow morning, millions of people will go to church. Because the codified allegory within those stories of how you're supposed to live as a human being guides them when they don't know what decisions to make in a circumstance, right? So we have the individual person may live and die within their faith, be it Christian or Muslim, Hebrew, Buddhist, whatever, without altering much of it. But some of them will become interested enough to think about it, to become religious scholars, to talk about things, to come up with their own stuff. Some may become heretics and have their own interpretation of Scripture, or say that they've been talked to by God, and have their own sort of thing, which can change how their society thinks. So what they're doing is they're adding to something which is a mind greater than their own. There is an emergent hive mind for humanity, which we can't observe because we're in it, in the same way that an ant can't perceive the way we see a nest of ants, or a bee can't see how we see a hive of bees. And that mind is huge, and it's not something you can communicate with directly. But it's there, and every generation that comes along has a little bit more of that. It's bigger and contains more knowledge. Every year, and every minute, and every second, it grows with every stupid video that's uploaded to YouTube, and every idea that someone has and puts on a message board. I mean, the internet reflects it, but isn't quite that same thing. So everyone has a version of this, a kit for how you're supposed to behave as a person, but downloaded into their mind. I suppose consciously, you would think we have to change this. We have to be able to hack that. We have to put instructions in, which will cause people to be, well, what do we ideally want people to be? You know, what will preserve the entire planet? What will enable people to be fulfilled and happy in their lives? My baseline state is I'm usually happy about everything. And my only frustration involves the fact that I have to go to work. That's it. That's not even that bad. You know, it's irksome that you have to deal with people in the public sometimes because they have differing ideas from you. Hard to convince.